take it you're not coming over later.
I am.
All right, we have a quorum. Call the meeting to order. Let's see. We're going to executive session, right?
Yeah. Want me to start it?
I got it. I'll call the meeting to order. This meeting of the Hopkins Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. The Select Board members will be participating. All members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at the Town Hall or via Zoom link provided using the link posted in the meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. All votes will be taken by a roll call vote.
Mr. Kamalo, why are we a roll call vote if all members are here?
I think it was
At the time,
expected that I would not.
yes, we were expecting that.
We're not sure.
So we don't need to go for a roll call. Yes. So I'm going to request a motion
That is
to enter
not
into enter into executive session. A, for the purpose pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 3, to consider strategy with respect to collective bargaining relative to the DPW, police, fire, and library unions, because a open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. To approve the executive session meeting minutes of 9/21/21, to have Elaine Lazarus and Norman Kamalo present in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do you accept?
Friendly amendment accepted.
Second.
All right. All right, so we have a motion, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That does have to be a roll call.
Yes.
That does, okay, we'll do a roll call vote on that one, so.
Muriel Kramer, yes?
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Ted Stone, yes.
Lafreniere, yes.
Your fondness really, yes.
All right.
All right, we'll be back in a little bit. Welcome, everyone. We're back from the executive session. We'll get started with the rest of the meeting. Before we do, I'd like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public forum. Please note that each person will have up to 2 minutes to speak at public forum. Please start by stating your name and address, recognizing that there may be people at the meeting in person and participating remotely who would like to speak. We'll go to the room first. Is there anyone present in the meeting room who would like to speak at public forum? Okay. Ben, is there anyone in Zoom with a hand raised?
No.
So through the chair, I have something I'd like to say. This week, the town lost another longtime resident, generational resident. His name was Joe Pine. Joe Pine was 81 years old, born and bred in Hopkinton. His dad was one of our fire chiefs. His dad, ironically, in a house fire at his own house, perished. There was a house fire, and as the story goes, the children, which is Jim Pine from Pine, Sand and Stone, and Joe, and Ginny, and Peggy, they were not all accounted for in Chief Joe Pine's eyes. And he went back in to look for one of them, and he wound up getting burnt pretty good and passing away. Joe Pine was an 81-year-old guy from town. The second call that I got as a selectman, as soon as I got elected in, the first one was from another. So Joe Pine, in full disclosure, is my cousin. The first one was from another cousin, Dick Stewart, telling me how he felt the condition of the fire hydrants in the town were. And asked how we could get those taken care of. The second call was Joe Pine saying, the fire hydrants in this town are deplorable. How can I get some red paint and white paint and go out and paint them? And I talked to Eric Hardy, and he went out and just started painting and painting and painting. And Joe Pine went to Brown University, was in the Army, and he went to Brown University and was a truck driver. And he was about the most brilliant truck driver you've ever met in your life. He had some very, very interesting stories for us as a family. He did a great job. He was our historian. He knew this country by mile marker on each route. But most importantly, he would not miss a town event, and he was laden in town pride. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he was on the road, 81 years old, he was on the road. Bringing a truck back from Tucson, Arizona. He had, as his daughter wrote in the Facebook obituary that she wrote, he had just done his 488th pass over the Mississippi River, and he developed some health problems and passed away. He was always at the veterans stuff. He's been volunteering down at the senior center for years. He's just what Hopkinton used to be, and hopefully what it will be, moving forward. And as a family member, I'm very, very sad for his loss. But as a townsperson, it's a big chunk of the town that we lose, that doesn't come back. So I would be remiss if I did not mention that. So rest in peace, Joe. You're a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's something that we all needed to hear. Thank you very much for that.
One thing about Joe is that if he saw you, he never failed to acknowledge you. Didn't matter who it was. Yep. He acknowledged every person that he knew all the time. It was amazing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward to the consent agenda. The board will consider approving the consent agenda consisting of approval of the minutes of the October 19, 2021 meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a
I
motion
did
that's been
submit a
seconded.
tiny typo correction, which I'm sure is no problem.
Motion has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. We don't have to do roll call vote now, right? Okay, so all in favor? Opposed, abstained, okay, that passes. Next agenda item is boards and committee and official appointments and resignations. The board will consider making several appointments to boards, committees, and offices, and will accept resignations. The board will first consider appointments to boards and committees. We have received applications from Nisha Nanaware Khrad for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, James Burton for the Board of Appeals, Sandra Story for the Council on Aging, Ekterina Namova for the Cultural Council, Patrick Fagan for the Hopkinton Historical District Commission, and Nasiba Manin for the Veterans Celebrations Committee, and Linda Truss and Carly Cedawand.
Only one of them can be appointed, so I think we're going to do the other.
Right. So, it's Carly Cedawand Epley, who both applied for the one vacancy in the Sustainable Green Committee. So with respect to the applicants who are unopposed, would the board like to ask any questions of the applicants or discuss any of the appointments?
Through the chair, I would like to appoint Nisha Nanaware Karadi to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, James Burton for the Board of Appeals, Sandra Story for the Council on Aging, Ekterina Namova for the Cultural Council, Patrick Fagan for the Hopkinton Historic District Commission, Nasiba Manan for Veteran Celebration Committee.
Okay, is that a motion?
It was.
Second. And thank you to all of them for stepping up.
Absolutely. We have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion?
I'd just like to acknowledge that Sandra Story is here this evening, and she took it out of her time to come and be present.
And I should say Katerina Namova, James Burton, Nisha Nanaware are all on the Zoom, too.
Oh, excellent. All right, motion's been seconded. We've had our discussion. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? Okay, that passes.
And with thanks, this is really wonderful that so many new people are coming forward, or
Absolutely.
people are coming forward in new ways, so it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Some of these have had vacancies for a while, so I really appreciate being able to get
So
this
that's,
filled.
that's huge. And then, it's great to have a problem where there's two people applying for the same vacancy.
This is when we give the pitch. When
So-
we're not able to appoint both, definitely look at other open spots, because we really
Absolutely.
like to take advantage of people's willingness to serve.
So, so we have Linda Truss and Carly Cedawand Epley, who both applied for the one vacancy on the Sustainable Green Committee. Are either of them present? Please come on up and tell us about your interest in Sustainable Green. Hi there. Have a seat. Please have a seat.
Hi, I'm interested in the Sustainable Green Committee because I want to serve the town. I'm very committed to sustainability in my own personal life, and I keep trying to find new ways, but I really want to expand that to more people into the town. I haven't done a lot. I've participated in lots of cleanups, things like that in town, but want to take it a step further. So I talked to John Sutherland, who's on the Sustainability Committee, and he suggested I apply for this position. I know him through the organic farm that he runs that I belong to.
Excellent. Board members, any questions?
I don't think I do. I just regret that we have to make the choice. Both candidates seem
I know.
highly qualified.
We did, Elaine, we did not get a letter from the other candidate, did we?
We
Yes, we do.
did.
Yeah.
She's out of, yeah.
She's out of
It's going to be
country.
like
Oh, okay.
3:41 her time or something, right?
That's right, she's in Dubai or something like that, right? Yeah.
Right.
I don't really have any questions, just a lot of enthusiasm to see you here, finding a way to volunteer. I remember way back in the day when our kids were competing in spelling.
Oh, really? Wow.
So anyway, I really appreciate that you're here, and I want to take this opportunity to sort of pitch black earth composting again, too. I don't know how much folks in town know that it's available to us, but for a very small fee. I've just started doing it, and I'm thrilled, and it's an unbelievable difference in my trash volume and weight. So it feels good to do it. It's super simple to do it. It's inexpensive to do it, and it really does make a huge difference. I can skip a week with trash and not even notice it, and my neighbors are still putting out multiple extra bags next to their trash. So anyway, black earth composting.
Excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the Sustainable Green Committee is quite a large committee with a lot of people. So whoever is not selected for the committee tonight, I hope you keep your eyes open and keep coming forward, because I do expect movement in that. When you have that many people on a committee, you will get movement. So I expect openings to continue there too.
Great. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think the Sustainable Green Committee is something that's going to be a driving force in the town as we're dealing with climate change, as we're dealing with so many different issues. Sustainability is something that really matters, and I think I'm really encouraged to hear how enthusiastic you are about wanting to be a part of it. So thank you for stepping up. So we have 2 applicants and 1 vacancy. Do any of the board members care to make a motion?
I will. I move to appoint Linda Chuss to the Sustainable Green Committee.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion been seconded. Any discussion?
I guess I'm sure we will do this, but we'll invite Carly to apply for one of the other, we have several other
Absolutely.
committees. Yep.
Yep. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
So just a quick note to Carly. I mean, I think she's very qualified, and yeah, would like to see her involved in the town, and if there's any other openings in the Sustainable Green Committee, Carly, please come back.
Yeah, there's definitely still an opening on Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Veteran Celebration. Let's see, Design Review, I think, has an alternate. Zoning Advisory has alternate members, too. So maybe something will be good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In fact, Mr. Chair, for the public's notice, next week, the Hopkinton Sustainable Green Committee will be making a beautiful presentation and update to the Select Board. So stay tuned.
Next week.
2 weeks from now, right?
No, next week.
Next week.
Yes.
Because Thanksgiving.
Okay, okay, so we're moving it up. Okay.
So stay
Screw up my
tuned.
count if you throw an extra meeting in.
No,
Got
it's
to
one.
count.
Excellent. The Historic Commission, are we doing that tonight, or?
We skipped that issue, we said it in.
Okay.
Yes.
So fence viewer.
Oh, we're not going to do the Historical
Yes,
Commission
yeah,
tonight?
we're not
Okay,
doing that tonight.
next time, okay.
So fence viewer, Ed Harrow has volunteered to serve as a fence viewer. This is unpaid volunteer position with its roots in the state statute.
Ed is here with us tonight.
He
It
is.
is, and I've known Ed for a long time, and he looks at a lot of fences. He is a good fence looker.
You want to count fences, Ed?
So firstly, if I can change hats briefly, as the Chair of Open Space, I have made entreaties to the Sustainable Green Committee, and we have talked about our mutual interests in making Hopkinton a more sustainable place. So I just want to congratulate those people who are working on that, because it is a clearly important thing. And secondly, I want to welcome Amy, because I know you've been, shall we say, recovering, I guess, is the word to use. So it's good to see you sitting here in person.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here in person.
We're happy to have you. So Ed, tell us about your interest in viewing fences.
Well, I saw it was a needed position. There was nobody filling it. I've had some experiences with boundaries and fences, and so it looked like a pretty straightforward position that's in many respects very arcane, but it is not entirely arcane. I am familiar with the Chapter 49 of Mass Regs. I've read that. I stopped at the town pound because I thought the town pound was outside my borders, so I didn't have to worry about anything that was part of the town pound. I don't believe we have any fences in town that cross rivers or streams or borders that are done by rivers or streams.
I'm sure if we do, you will find them.
Or they'll find me, as the case may be.
I have worked with Ed for the last 6 years on open space, and if I will find one word to describe Mr. Harrow, it is thorough.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
we're
I
lucky to
agree.
have him. Any board or committee that we can get Mr. Harrow on is 2 thumbs up for the town.
Thank you. Obviously, I have snowed you well.
Yes. Still waiting for that ride in the
Well
Corvette.
done. What does a fence viewer do
Well,
for the public?
my read of the role is the fence viewer sits at home, relaxing, until the fence viewer alarm goes off, whereupon he jumps into his vehicle and heads to the only phone booth I know in town, which is on Clinton Street,
Yep,
where I
Marshall's house.
dash in and change into my fence viewer costume,
I was wondering if there was going to be a telephone booth in this story.
and then proceed to wherever I have been called to. My read is that this is a position that reacts to calls, that it does not go out looking for fences that are derelict or otherwise suspect. It waits to be paged and then goes and looks. There are some confusing issues. For instance, Massachusetts says that fences can't be over 6 feet high. Otherwise, if they are, they're a spike fence. But I noticed that Acton says 8 feet, and I hear rumors that Hopkinton says 7 feet. But at this point, I have to confess, I have not found the fence regs and Hopkinton bylaws, but I have a request in for that, so I hope to have that quite soon. I know that there are cases where, with spike fences, where I might have to call the building department to send out the building inspector, and in questions where there's a question as to whether the fence is on the actual boundary or not, that then I would notify the parties that A, they have to take a timeout in their argument, and B, they have to get a surveyor. And as opposed to the non-payment, I read that the fence viewer gets $5 a day when he's on call, and I need that money. That has to fill up the gas tank in the plastic pig.
So,
Well,
I have a question and a comment. Question is, do you have a favorite type of fence?
Do I have a favorite?
Type of fence? Because I prefer electric.
I would say that, but I'm not really sure that I should really should answer that question.
Yeah, you should stay neutral.
And then my comment is, Fire Chief Miller is here tonight. You can certainly go down and approach him for a red light permit for your car if you need to get to
Well,
the fence.
I do get a badge, right?
Oh, yeah. No. We've gone through the badge thing.
This could be a problem. I might have to vote no, right? There's Carol with the badge.
Yeah.
all right.
So,
So
through the chair, have we made a motion yet?
we have not.
I would like to confirm the town manager's appointment of Ed Harrow as fence viewer to a term expiring 6/30/22.
I would love to second that.
All right, we have a motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Your fence parliamentarian.
We'll have a pinning ceremony for that.
The negotiations ended last week.
So Bob's not, unfortunately, Bob's not here, so we can't have a photo op, but someday.
Good to see you.
Now, are we going to do B?
Yes.
Good job.
Okay.
D is in David?
No, B.
I'm told I have to report home.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
D, yes, B, no.
All right, so resignations. The board will consider accepting the resignations of Don Ronan and Andrea Kramus from the Youth Commission. Are either of them present?
They're not.
No.
So through the chair, we also had a third applicant that resigned. We had a fourth as well, but the fourth one reneged on her resignation. But I'm looking to see through my email. I want to make sure that so I see Chelsea.
We're not acting on the other ones, though.
We're not
But we
acting.
can. We can.
But we don't need to.
We don't need to, but we can.
Yeah, but I would rather wait if we can.
Okay.
We're meeting just next week, right?
We're meeting next week, so we can just do that one.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't in the agenda, so.
So I will, I would like to move to accept the resignations of Don Ronan and Andrea Kramus from the Youth Commission.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion?
I'd just like to really thank them both for their time on the Youth Commission. I know Don particularly has been on there for a very long time, and I really appreciate her work, and we're sorry to see them go, but understand.
I second that. I think, anyone who volunteers their time in town and works on these kind of issues is to be commended, and I thank them for their service. I don't think we needed to get to this point, but I thank them for everything they've done.
So I would also like to make sure we always thank people who have served the town and made contributions, especially to our young people. Frankly, I take nothing more seriously than the way we model and serve our town, but in particular our young people. So as someone who was there at the very beginning when the Youth Commission was not even a Youth Commission yet, I was working with Renee Camerata Hamilton and Timmy Brennan, actually, when this was first conceived, the first flames of some sort of youth-involved organization. I really appreciate all that have volunteered over the years and have grown that Youth Commission into something that has been many times really substantially wonderful in this town, and I hope that I look forward to future successes. And I also want to just say I'm the liaison, and I just want to make a firm commitment personally that I'm very invested in the success of the Youth Commission, and I stand ready to do my part to help make that happen.
Thank you. All right, so we've had a motion that's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstained? No. So that passes.
I'd like to say something just
Go ahead.
before we close this section of our meeting. One of the applicants for the Veterans Celebration Committee, who we just approved, I was struck by something that was written in her application, and I'd like to read it in honor of Veterans Day. It's just a small sentence. It says, "Veterans put their lives on the line to defend the lives of all of us. They protect the freedoms we often take for granted, and they uphold the principles and the laws that govern us. This would be my opportunity to serve those who serve us." That was from Nasiba Manan, and I think with Veterans Day on Thursday, it's an appropriate sentiment, and I just wanted to acknowledge it.
This is a great time, since you said that. I love that statement that she made. I am not able to be here on Veterans Day. I'm hoping that one of us is able to participate in the Veterans Day celebration, and I wanted to just personally thank every veteran out there and their families, and also remind them that lots of places have veterans benefits. Snappy Dogs is offering free lunch in town, as is the 110 Grill, and I think that every veteran out there should take advantage of the big and little thank yous that are available to them on this Thursday.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Spoken like a good veteran that you are.
Mary Jo, I think that was very well said. very eloquent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I thank Ms. Zuba.
Yeah.
And I will be at the Veterans.
Oh, awesome, good.
And I signed up to make
I'm having
cookies
a
for the
procedure
for the dinner.
Do my absolute best, so I'm going to,
My dad and my uncle Richard, they're both veterans of the Army, and they love going to Applebee's every Veterans Day for their free meal.
I make that statement a little bit especially so everybody will take advantage of it, but it's a thing in my family. So my husband and I are both veterans, but his dad was an actual hero from World War II. And he was a scream and a half on Veterans Day. He would get a donut at Honeydew, and he'd get a donut at Dunkin' Donuts, and he'd get his oil changed, and he'd get a pizza. Of course, he was full from all his donuts, so he would take the pizza home, and then he met his buddies for lunch, and he took his wife out for dinner. And my kids, the reason I know about all the different things, my kids will all send Randy and I notices of all the things that are available to veterans, so that someone goes and gets something in honor of Grandpa on that day.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
It really is.
Just one more item is that there were 3 vacancies on this committee. So anyone out there who has an interest in veterans and veteran celebration, please come forward at a later meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's worth saying, too, that there's openings, obviously, on the Youth Commission, and we really encourage people who are invested in furthering the mission of that commission to step forward and join us.
Excellent. All right, moving on to our next agenda item.
Sean is not here.
Sean's not here. Is he on the Zoom? No. So we will not be doing the COVID-19 update, and we'll
Give a
move
couple of
forward.
minutes there.
Move forward to the advance of funds in lieu of borrowing. The Select Board will consider the request of the Treasurer-Collector to authorize an advance of funds in lieu of borrowing in the amount of $900,000 for the Hayden Row Street Water Main Replacement Project, which was approved at the May 2nd, 2016 Annual Town Meeting. The advance will support the...
Irfan, if I could, since Sean's not here, can I just put in a plug for on Veterans Day? There is also a COVID vaccine clinic for the children ages 5 to 11, and last I heard this morning it was not full. If people are interested, they can sign up.
And where is that?
It's at the middle school, and they sign up on the state website.
Awesome.
Chris?
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for letting me cut Sean.
Oh, no, Sean's done.
Sean let you in front.
He's passed.
TJ, it's probably a good idea. So thank you for your time this evening. I am just here very briefly to request your authorization of an advance of funds in lieu of borrowing to support the Hayden Row Water Main Project. So this project was authorized in 2016 for $1.6 million, and we have to date borrowed $700,000. And I plan to recommend that the remainder of that be part of our next borrowing in the spring. However, Mr. Westling needs those funds now to complete the project. And fortunately, the Commonwealth allows for the town to draw on reserves in advance of a planned borrowing, which we have. And then all we need to move forward with that is signatures from you, lovely people.
Excellent. So this
There's
is...
a suggested motion on the memo itself, and the form is the enclosure on that needs to be signed.
Okay. So this was already approved at the annual town meeting.
Correct.
So, board members, any questions?
No, thank you for the explanation.
Thanks. All right, then in that case, I request a motion to approve an advance of funds in lieu of borrowing in the amount of $900,000 in connection with the Hayden Row Water Main Replacement approved in Article 20 of the May 2nd, 2016 Annual Town Meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstained? It passes. Next agenda item is a means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption for fiscal year 2022. The board will discuss and determine the dollar amount of the exemption for the means-tested senior citizens property tax exemption application for the fiscal year 2022. Tim O'Leary.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about the limited real property tax exemption for seniors who received the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker income tax credit last year, and it's on page 38 of your packet. This is allowed under a special act that was passed for Hopkinton in 2018, and it allows the select board to grant the creditor between 50% and 200% of whatever credit the senior got last year from the state. So it adjusts every year for inflation. Last year, the max was $1,130. This year, it's up to $1,150. At $1,150, the select board can approve any exemption in a range between $575 and $2,300. As a reminder, in FY 20 and 21, the select board approved the maximum 200% exemption. The Board of Assessors has reviewed all the applications and they've approved the 19 that qualified, and they recommend an exemption level at the 200% level as you have approved in the past 2 years. I would just like to recognize the Board of Assessors. I sat through the meetings with them as they reviewed and approved all these applications. It was a lot of work and they were very careful about it. And also Deputy Assessor Renee Chen was critical in organizing and supporting this process. So the value of all the exemptions that have been recommended by the Board of Assessors at the 200% level would be $40,938. 17 applicants would get the maximum $2,300 exemption, and we had 2 applicants who received less than the full circuit breaker, so they'd get a partial exemption. If the select board votes this exemption tonight, other taxpayers within only the residential class will make up the difference to support the tax levy at the established level. So if the select board approves at the 200% level, we expect a 1 cent higher tax rate for the residential category as it is this year. Although it's possible with rounding it could bump up to 2 cents because, you know, we don't do fractions of cents in the tax rate. So for an average homeowner with a $655,000 house, that 1 cent would be $6.55 on their tax bill. If it rounds up to 2 cents, it would be $13.10 on the tax bill.
And that's divided quarterly.
That would be divided. Get it down even more. Happy to answer any questions. There's a draft motion in the package.
Yeah. I have no questions. I reviewed everything. It all made sense. Board members, do we?
So this is an awesome program that we started, I believe that when I became a board member. And it's a wonderful thing to keep. I mean, the parameter, it's not open to everybody. It's people that have grown their roots here and fall under certain parameters, and Gold Star families as well, correct?
You know, that's a different exemption.
I'm sorry.
We'll have a separate set of approvals later.
So there are a few seniors who I normally mention that this particularly pertains to. They have asked me to no longer mention their names. But it warms my heart to know that we're doing whatever we can to make it so these people on fixed incomes that have lived here for 70 years or more can afford to stay to live here. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very small cost to the average taxpayer, and it really helps people who really need it. So I think it's an excellent program.
Yeah, I second that. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the information, but I appreciate that we're able to do this, particularly for some of our more vulnerable residents, and that's good to know that we're investing in here.
Joe?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I would move that the Select Board adopt exemptions at 200% of the calendar year 2020 circuit breaker income tax credit for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? All right.
Thank you very
Passes.
much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks,
I
Tim.
think it's a great program. Okay. Let me... Select Board goal setting. The board will review goals and priorities discussed at previous meetings and consider completing its goals setting process. Members have prepared drafts for the remaining goals and problem statements, which we have received. The remaining goal definition, process, procedure, initiative, and the reasons why. So we shall start with one of the goals, which was to increase public participation in visioning and strategic planning for the town. And Muriel
I'm
was
up.
looking at that one.
All right, let me see if I can find it here. So I am as most people probably know, I'm a huge fan of public participation in all facets of town government. It has been my great privilege to participate in many visioning events. I was at one time the chair of the Master Plan Rewrite Committee at one iteration, and I really think that it's a wonderful opportunity for us as we grow to make sure that we stay in touch with the needs and desires of the town. So my focus with this is to hopefully sort of make it a more routine process, that we have engagement opportunities and events, so that that people know that they have opportunities to really contribute to that discussion, and they can begin also to plan for them and become comfortable with the format and become comfortable participating with the process. I also think, so I'm a social worker by trade too, and one of the things that's really important to translate sort of book learning and experience into really solid action for the people who you're trying to serve is to understand their needs and their priorities from their perspectives. And I think that is a critical piece of what we do. So I've suggested some macro level, big picture strokes to ensure that the town manager and select board understand the needs and priorities of the residents. Ensure that the town manager and select board welcome the participation and viewpoints of all residents with respect. Create a predictable and inviting process for annual input, feedback, visioning, however we want to define that, from residents. And I had some ideas: town halls, public hearings, strategic planning or visioning sessions that encourage broad participation. Communicate proactively about upcoming strategic plans and ensure the public is invited to participate. For example, I thought it would be wonderful to ask the public, and I know that we're always open to feedback, but to create and be intentional about it, I think, is important. So as we talk about these goals, I've said this before, but we would appreciate input and feedback on how people feel about the goals as we've established them even. So then, in keeping with the formula, we had two process goals. I suggested empowering town hall employees and boards and committees and commissions to be responsive to residents' priorities. Invite participation and comment at the select board whenever possible. Schedule annual feedback visioning events with a set agenda and structure, and consider professional facilitators, and also thank participants. And we have done those before, and they're really, really helpful. They're also really helpful in helping people who have particular priorities understand the bigger picture, the other priorities too, and engage in the conversation that helps weigh different priorities, their own priorities and other priorities, to try and establish a more collective set of priorities. And then conduct a community needs assessment when needed, but I suggested at least every 3 years. I'm not really so over the top about that. It's just I'm throwing out that suggestion. And ask questions about the quality of life that include physical health, behavioral health, and also input on DEI measures. I think DEI goals are goals that we really need to focus on collectively, and find out if that's what the public thinks we need to be doing as well.
Sure. So I think that's great. As I read this, I kind of think, do you think that there's any particulars in here that we're not currently doing adequately?
And I should say, and I did say, I think when I was giving my little speech, we are open to feedback.
Yeah.
I think that an intentionality of process. So I hope I'm not communicating anything that is in any way negative or critical here.
No.
I'm looking to sort of codify an approach whereby we really actively pursue the public's participation on big, broad strokes goals in the community on some regular basis.
Okay. So try to put down current practices into policy? Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess, could I jump in?
Sure.
So I guess I think although residents can come to any select board meeting they want and give their feedback, sometimes it's not a convenient time of year for us to take any kind of action on that feedback. So if there were a predictable time every year where we had this forum and they knew it would be coming up, they could save those questions. Or it would just be a more efficient way maybe to get those comments all at the same time.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. Just have like a forum where, kind of like the all-hands meeting, where,
It's
like a town hall thing.
I don't really, I'm not really overly invested in the kind of format. We've had many strategic planning sessions, visioning sessions over the years, and they're lovely and wonderful and powerfully impactful, and it creates a sense of investment for folks that might not always participate every day in town government. So I'm very open personally to format and idea.
And if it's a predictable annual process, we can concentrate publicity on, please come to this event, please give your feedback, come here, I'll take this feedback. Sometimes you just get a better result when it's focused.
Sounds good. Any board members have any questions? All right. Moving on. Next up is me. So I was looking at climate change and how to address climate change. The big question of why is because it's happening. I think this past year, this past summer, we had incredible rain. We saw every rain event was far greater rainfall than we'd seen previously, and this is something that we should start getting our heads around. So kind of the macro chunks would be to get to net zero as a community. We would need to be looking at stormwater management and flood control, try to reduce emissions and the town's carbon footprint, and then also increase alternative energy. That all sounds great. How do you get there? So one thing for the public, I want the public to understand is that, we have these goals that we're trying to meet. We're going to do everything we can to get there, but there's also the reality of how we're going to get there. So the process goals would be to adopt a net zero resolution and a climate action plan, adopt a forward-thinking rainfall calculations, and in that, we would also need to identify flood zones with the forward-thinking rainfall calculations. We try to reduce emissions through zoning and the support of alternative transportation, encourage and incentivize alternative energy, and I think in that we would want to update the policy on private solar farms, as well as identify areas for solar and wind farms, kind of through zoning. We would also want to redirect purchasing power through environmentally friendly vendors, provide and incentivize electric vehicle charging stations, and then identify dedicated sources of funding stream for all of this. There was another thing that I kind of I saw on TV and I thought this was incredible, which is basically community groundwater geothermal systems, where basically there would be say a new subdivision. They would have one centrally located geothermal facility with pipes that run around to all the houses, and they can all connect to them. And then they pay a fee as a utility, and a way of getting to net zero. Heating and cooling is a big cost in our carbon footprint. Any thoughts? Anyone want to?
So I will say to the hundreds and thousands of people that are out there watching us, this goal is not just something that Mr. Nasrullah pulled out of the sky. This is something he embraces. I know that I have spent so much so that he helped convince my wife and I to buy an electric vehicle, which I have not yet gotten. It's It's a pickup truck, and I don't believe that it's as green as people think. There's still strip mining of lithium and have to throw away the batteries, but I bought it strictly for the gas savings. I got it for the gas savings, but I spent hours and hours, and you can just feel the passion that Irfan has for this stuff. So it's natural that he migrated to this goal, and he's very passionate and thorough about it. So I know that if there's a way for Mr. Nasrullah to incorporate any of this, and you have a chance to get his ear and listen to his take on it, it's well worth the 15, 20 minutes of listen, although I still haven't had a ride in the Tesla, because I'm afraid that if I got into it, I couldn't get it off of me. So,
Thanks. And truth be told, it would be more than 15 minutes, because I just can't shut up, so.
Well, I would just like to say, I really appreciate your investment in this, and I really appreciate that this has risen to one of our major goals. And I also always appreciate the idea to incentivize that which what we would like to see happen more.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate that focus. And the only thing that I would say is that there are so many creative ways. You just outlined one, creative ways to bring in alternative energy, including solar and so forth. And I would love to incentivize ways that are sort of less intrusive and less land consumptive and more overall amenable to everybody in town too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's going to be a balancing act as we go forward, when we're considering, what is, clean energy versus polluting energy, and are we willing to give up some polluting energy, give up some open space for some clean energy in lieu of. So it's going to be a balancing act, and I think that's something that we're going to have to go through. And I think there's other things other than just solar and wind. I was just reading that nuclear is something that's back on the table, as we have newer facilities and they're better able to manage it. And one of the things that, Brendan brings up with the strip mining is, as we kind of go forward, I think that we identify issues and we see, okay, what is the critical issue that we need to get past right now? All right, yes, we see that there is this other issue in mining lithium, and that is an issue. It's not something to be discounted. But is it going to get us through to the next phase where then we can look at, what is the next technology that we need to look at? And hopefully we will not have caused more damage trying to fix one issue.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at it. All right, so thank you. The next would be increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels throughout the town, and that is Amy's.
Okay, so this is what I came up with the goal definition of increased diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels throughout the town so that all voices are represented, and town staff and volunteers mirror the demographic makeup of the town as a whole. So the process goals would be to identify baseline levels of diversity, equity, inclusion in town staffing, town boards and committees, participation in town events and activities, participation in town meetings and elections, analyze areas where diversity, equity, inclusion do not mirror the demographic makeup of the town, for example, single gender committees or events that are not ADA accessible, identify barriers that prevent some groups from being represented on town staff, boards and committees, events, town meetings, elections. For example, communication or content that's not accessible to all residents, or events that are not accessible without a car. Develop a multi-year plan with SMART goals to remove barriers and gradually increase diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the town.
Excellent. Any comments or questions for Amy?
The only thing that I also really appreciate this goal and the work you put into it, Amy, and it is a big personal priority, and I appreciate that it has become a big town priority as well. I wonder if there's room to have a conversation, to have, a professional facilitator or somebody come in and sort of give us guidance on really getting started and engaging in a town-wide DEI conversation and help setting those goals and establishing steps. And it's not so much that I think
We can't necessarily do it, but I think that there's very, very much value to people who do it professionally, people who have different experiences, and people who also do it objectively in a town that we love and are very attached to and may or may not see the ways we need to sort of make progress.
Yeah, I think that's,
I think you bring up a good point, but I think that's kind of where we get into the weeds of how are we going to do it, and maybe that's best left for leaving it to the professional staff to kind of look at how are we going to do this,
yeah.
right?
And part of the first step, it's in the packet, so I won't read it all, but I did do an analysis, a baseline analysis of our current board and committee members, and just from the voter list, we can tell kind of where they live in town, about how old they are, and about how long they've been registered to vote in town, which usually correlates to when they move to town, but not always. And we cannot analyze other things like race, ethnicity, religion, national origin, disability status, gender identity. So that's just kind of where we are now.
Age.
And, well, we can do age, that's in the voter list. Yeah.
So we can ask, so when someone's coming to a board, applying to a board, we can ask how old they are?
No.
It's in the voter list, it's public record.
It's just that kind of the compilation
Okay.
is able to show age, but we can't show
Yeah.
race
Yeah.
by looking at
I
this.
see.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit in the weeds, but like the town of Framingham started asking on their board and committee sign-up, Google, the form that they have. It's an optional question, but you can ask people if they would like to specify their race, ethnicity, religion, things like that. So that could be, I don't know that we necessarily need to do that, but people might want to voluntarily say, yeah, I have a disability and I can't access these certain things, and that's why I want to be on the committee, or, I don't know. I think it could be useful, but certainly voluntary because it's sensitive.
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this item is number 10 on the agenda. With your permission, perhaps we could let Amy launch into the details.
Oh, sorry.
Because it's tied to...
I think that, I was going to suggest that, actually, when it started with Amy, I was going to say maybe we should push you to the back so you can jump right in, but go ahead.
Yep.
Why don't you jump into the...
No, I think that's all. You can look through what we know so far and just eyeballing it. So, for example, the Legacy Farms represents 5% of the town's voters, but only 1% of the people on boards and committees. So it's interesting to know, and I don't know if they just don't want to be on boards and committees, or they don't know how to get on a boards and committee, or if there's some other barrier we could identify.
So I think this kind of reaches back to Mariel's thing about increasing participation, right? So that could be something that we could be looking at is how to draw people in, right? Did you want to continue with your baseline?
Well, do you want me to go through it all, or is that too much?
There is a lot there, and it's all in the packet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
If you can give us an overall summary of what you were able to come up with.
Okay, so by general precinct area of town, membership on boards and committees is it's pretty close. There's 4 precincts in town, and it's within a couple percentage points of about a quarter of all board and committee members are from each precinct, so I think that's pretty good. But if you separate out some of our larger new areas of town, Legacy Farms and the Windsor Apartments, they have a lower participation rate on board and committees than their number of registered voters that live in those areas. So that could be an area for improvement. Let's see. And then for age group, when you do the comparison chart, so baby boomers are overrepresented on boards and committees, as well as, let's see. Right, compared to, for example, the Gen Y and the Gen Z is ages 18 to 24. That's pretty young, but the millennials are underrepresented, and Gen X is overrepresented as well. So that could be an area for improvement. How can we get millennials, Gen Y, to be more involved on boards and committees? Length of time in town, I don't know if this seems kind of natural. People who lived in town longer, more than 20 years, they represent 49% of the people on boards and committees in town. And to some extent, that's natural. You lived in town longer, you feel more invested, you know kind of how to get on a board and committee. And then but then people who lived in town less than 5 years, only 9% are on boards and committees. And again, we could explain that they're just new to town, they haven't really got their feet wet. But it could be, it's an area for improvement as well.
Great.
So does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I think that kind of goes coincides with your, goal presentation as well as Mariel's goal presentation, so I think that kind of, that works well. Moving back to our goals, the next would be addressing our town water needs, and we left that one up to Brendan.
So, my macro chunks, to develop a sustainable water supply for the town and to balance usage and conservation. So the goals would be to determine, number one, to determine the town's long-term water needs, and that there's a lot to review there as far as potential developments down the road, wells, tying into other towns, the whole 9 yards. There's a lot to it. Review options to meet the needs, seek the public's input, develop an implementation plan, seek town meeting and all required approvals, and then legislative support. So
That seems to make sense and very succinct, and
so some of the stuff is very, our hands are tied. When I first got on the board, there was the water ban, and there were these people in their big houses using their, or even little houses,
Their sprinklers.
using their
Just gonna
sprinklers.
say my house is there.
Yeah, and the fine was like $25. And if you lose your lawn, it's well worth the $25 fine to water it and not lose your lawn.
right.
The one bag of fertilizer is $50. So I wanted to increase the fines to like $500 for the first one, $1,000 for the second, $2,000 for the third, and we couldn't because there's all types of rules and regulations over increasing fines. We're not allowed to profit from it and things like that. So, but if you make it, I still stand firm by saying if you make it the punishment more expensive than the crime, then you may not do it. And that may go back to the time I spent working in the prisons. Is if you make it a nice place to live, people are going to come back. And with the $25 fine, if I'm spending $10,000 a year on fertilizer and lawn care, I can swing the $25 and take the fine.
Right.
I don't.
Becomes a cost
I don't have
of doing
irrigation on my house, but it's there's got to be a way to find it that more severe penalties.
Well, again, we would leave that to the professional staff to
That's
come
right.
up with,
we
how
don't-
are we going to do that?
We don't get involved in the day-to-day operations, do we,
That's
Mr.
right.
Messina?
No, we do not.
But
I have a question, though.
creative
Could you,
solutions too, about
Yeah.
better communication about why you shouldn't water your lawn in a drought.
So
Could you advertise, or could you put a
You can
a
incentivize.
little sign on
neighbors to
somebody's
be
lawn
lax.
saying, in violation of water rules, or
Oh, public
have
sharing. Awesome, let's
the
do
weekly
that.
list of violators or
Have
something,
a
I
mock
don't know, but
policeman come out and issue fines.
Yeah,
like that.
maybe we can incorporate
Shame on you,
Mr.
Thomas.
Harrow as a fence/sprinkler watcher.
So I think also, all kidding aside, I think that there are flexibilities for people who are starting a lawn. Speaking as someone who practices tough love on all sorts of landscaping, if it isn't willing to grow without any attention, it just doesn't grow in my house. But some people, when new lawns are put in or new landscaping is put in, there are flexibilities, and I would second Amy's comment too, that I think it's very important to explain why to people. I have a private well, and my neighbors at first didn't fully understand. Our private wells all abut the town aquifer. We're all pulling from the same
Water
aquifer.
All the same pool.
So while it is my private well, we have a public responsibility to the greater good. So, but we didn't, at first, not everybody understood that, the science of it necessarily, or why it's important, and why the town takes these steps.
So I think that's why the legislative support is critical here, because we can regulate our own water supply, but private water supplies don't fall on that. So some legislative support to assist in that would be helpful.
Well, I think that they do, though. I think that they already do fall. Private wells are part of the water restrictions when they happen. I think I was trying to say that we didn't understand that necessarily.
I'm not sure that was ever perfectly clear. I mean,
But it's on their dime. If their well runs dry and it's a private well, they have to pay to
Right.
dig deeper or whatever.
hard to believe we're talking about water conservation when we're like overflowing with water right now, but
But it's cyclical.
But it's right,
We'll
it's
have
right.
to do it again in a few years.
we will. All right, so the last one would be the developing a relationship with the LNG facility, and Mary Jo was tasked with that, but I think last week we kind of dealt with it a bit, but in the policy with the town manager being the point man. But if you want to go forward and kind of...
We were discussing it, and I did come up with and some of these are being done, I'm sure. I just haven't been involved, and it's establish communications with the fire chief, other municipal offices that have dealings with Eversource. They should be talking to each other as well as to Eversource, I believe, on the town's benefit. Build and maintain regular schedules of meetings and inspections to allow continuing communication between the town and Eversource. Research. I think it would be good that we know that someone in town has done some research on the rules and regulations for utilities operating in Massachusetts. I haven't seen anything, but I'm sure the commissioners must have something in writing that we can look back on and check. And I want to communicate with the state representatives, our senator and representative, on ways to move communications forward. Can we receive assistance from the state regulatory commissions? Don't want to rock any boats, but I think that we should be able to discuss things with these people. We should, if we have problems, we should be able to bring them forward without any adversarial reactions from anybody. That's one thing I don't want the town to do, is become adversarial. We're able to assist, are we able to assist Eversource, and my thought was in public notifications, explanations, communications to the town on their ongoing work if they have projects. And I know we are doing a lot of that as is, but I'd like Eversource to acknowledge that we're doing this. The town wants a good, working, open, informative relationship with Eversource while ensuring and maintaining the safety and well-being of our citizens. That is primary, and that's the whole reason for trying to build a non-adversarial working relationship with Eversource. They are one of our largest taxpayers and one of our and a huge citizen of the town. And I think that we really need to keep something going.
Sure. Excellent. I mean, I think last week last meeting when we had our policy on the LNG facility, I think we kind of dealt with a lot of that, but I think these are great goals for us to provide guidance for where we want to go with this. So I thank you for that. All right. Anyone else have anything? All right, great. So that brings us to our next agenda item, which would be the town manager report. Mr. Kamalu.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting off with the Main Street Corridor project update, we included a write-up from Dave and Michelle in your packet. Key highlights, I think, looking ahead, the large culverts are now in the ground as from the Main Street intersection to Wood Street. The next effort is going to be putting in the conduits. And we're hoping that the contractor can accelerate this process and get a huge chunk of that done before November 15th. We're also having conversations with the contractor to discuss winding down ahead of the winter season onset. Schedule-wise, the decisions that were made, I believe, a month back regarding widening the road to its full width, allowing for 2 lanes to exist at all times, actually gave the contractor 3 weeks of work, which they were behind doing, and so we've now caught up on the schedule. And then finally, budget-wise, we've been waiting anxiously to receive the first bill on the undergrounding project, and Dave tells me we're most likely going to receive that bill next week.
Great.
Mr. Kamalo, as we end the construction season, I brought it up to Mr. Westerling, but I'm going to implore you to follow up with him as well and kind of hold his feet to the fire. When they close up for the winter, this Main Street should not have the amount of bumps and divots and trenches, and they should not be evident. That should be a smooth surface. So this trench inspections really need to stay on it on trench inspections and make sure that throughout the winter when they're not working, there's no reason for the townspeople to have to endure the conditions of the road prior to the marathon, where their teeth would shake out of their head. So I'm asking you to really implore the importance on Mr. Westerling to hold their feet to the fire on this.
Yeah, that point is well taken. I believe Dave Del Torio set a very high standard. We are all trying to emulate his standard. In fact, down at South Street, we, as of today, have an agreement from Eversource that they will work on the trench before November 15th.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
To piggyback on what Brendan asked, do we know when we're coming to an end of the construction season? We're in November now. So,
It's weather related.
so we just keep going until the weather gets
So the batch
bad?
plants, the hot top plants shut down at a certain
Okay.
temp and with the
That
frost.
tuminous stuff, yeah.
And
So we don't have a date or week yet? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to finish by
yeah.
November 15th and then continue as.
anything else is a
I
bonus.
had to get
Yeah.
two
Okay.
tires.
We use November 15th as a guideline.
But it could go a little longer?
Yes, it could go, yes, depending on the weather conditions.
It used to be that Trimount had a hard date where they'd shut down on the day before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And Trimount's where you get your hot top. So once that shuts down, that's it. But throughout the years, they've amended that. So now they're trying to stretch it out for as long
A
as
little
they
bit
can.
flexible, okay.
Yeah, moving on, FY23 budget update. I am happy to report that the process is continuing on schedule. The weekly meetings between the assistant town manager, the CFO, the town manager, the superintendent, and the school business manager are continuing, and so are the budget advisory committee meetings. The town departments have developed their initial operating budgets, and they are working this week to finalize their capital budget submissions. We will therefore begin the detailed budget reviews with town departments, and as early as next week. Those sessions, as you know, will include an in-depth review of the requests and a review of the links between the budget requests, the strategic objectives, as well as a focus on the performance metrics as we, I think if you look at the last annual town report, began identifying specific performance metrics for each department. We will continue that process. In terms of the budget forecast, the only update or updated information I have to offer is that the media reports are continuing to let us know that the Commonwealth continues to substantially exceed projected budgeted revenues. We expect that those numbers will then trickle down to the towns and cities of the Commonwealth. For example, on November 4th, the State House News Service reported that the state collectors took in $2.45 billion in October, 17% above what was collected in October 2020, and 8.7% more than what DOR was expecting to collect. As you know, this number, as I said, fits directly into local aid. So we're remaining optimistic that there'll be an increase in local aid coming to the community.
Awesome.
We will continue to report on the budget progress as the reviews continue.
Excellent.
Okay. invitational entry policy. I'm presenting this to the board purely out of efficiencies. As of now, the BAA has not confirmed that we'll be receiving entries. However, based on our schedule, by now, the board will be distributing the invitational entries. So my thinking is, if the board is in agreement, we can agree on a policy for how those invitational entries will be assigned to civic organizations in town, allowing, if the BAA reaches out to the town next week and says the numbers are available, we can then immediately push them out to the non-profits in town without having to come back to the board or to wait for the board's next meeting.
But we could amend it if necessary later, if there is a change.
Yes, correct. We're always wishing that the town's number of invitational entries goes up. We will always ask for that. We'll, through the chair, be advocating for an increase. However, the plan that I proposed, included in your packet, is the same plan that we have used for in the past years. It has worked tremendously well. This past year, the local organizations raised close to $300,000 for local causes.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I'm asking the board to endorse the 4-point plan that is included in your packet.
So you need us to vote on this?
Yes, please.
Board members, do you have any questions?
It's just on the select board policy. I got a call that they just wanted the starting gun section added, the 4th wave, because they do 2, 3, and 4 now, and it's not in the policy. So the Marathon Committee asked me to make sure that gets added.
Well, I think this is more about how we give out the invitational entries.
Well,
Yes.
But section 4 does talk about the starting guns and...
Yeah, just to be clear, I think the point is well taken. The point Mary Jo is raising relates to the overall marathon policy. What we are talking about specifically is the board's responsibility to annually set the process for assigning the invitational entries. However, I think that point is well taken. We will review it and perhaps come back to the board at a future meeting with the suggested change.
Okay. So through the chair, I move to approve the BAA invitational entry policy for the 2022 Boston Marathon.
second.
All right, we have a motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm still contemplating. I don't have any questions or problems. This is, we haven't codified this policy before. This is what we're doing. We do it. This is what we've been doing.
Yes.
And you want to just codify it so that you can just initiate it when you hear from the BAA?
I think we vote on it every year, is that right?
Yes.
You vote on this policy every year?
Every
I'm sorry,
year.
I'm catching up.
Yes, for purposes of transparency,
Okay.
the board has to vote on this every year,
Okay.
based on its policy.
I appreciate that.
And we could change it every year.
No, yeah.
Yeah, we it can vary, but,
Well, when this is, we request that they raise $5,000, is that like, what does that mean? I know that this is a challenging year. I love this program, and some people may or may not raise $5,000 twice, right? Because there's 2 marathons in a year. What is the policy on the fundraising?
The $5,000 is a guideline.
It's a goal. We want to see that if possible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I can share this past year, one of the organizations exceeded that 5,000 substantially.
Yeah, crazy. It's awesome.
great. Okay. Any other further discussion? All right, so all in favor? Aye. Any opposed, abstained? Okay, it passes.
Okay, tree management. Wanted to bring, at least to the board's attention, the work that we've been doing at staff level regarding tree management in town. In the interest of perhaps informing the new members as well as the public, there is a previous commitment by the town to form a tree management department within DPW. We all do agree that forming such a department requires a great deal of funding to be in hand. We don't have that yet. So the past 2 years, we have been implementing interim measures to at least keep the process moving forward. Though our overall goal is to create a tree management department within DPW. This year, as included in my report, we have put out a bid that will allow us to identify an operator who will come into town and really help us along. Specifically, they will be able, and this is what we found out, that they will be able to remove at least 100 trees per day. These are dead trees along the right-of-way. And as an interim measure, we believe this is a good win for the town. Alongside that, we're continuing our relationship with Eversource, where when they have their tree cutting crews locally, we identify some trees that they also cut on behalf of the town, and they've done this at no cost to the town.
That was a big chunk.
Yeah.
That was an awful lot. They actually removed a dead tree in front of my house. Yeah.
Yeah. In 2019, Eversource removed as many as 145 dead trees, and that would have cost the town approximately $260,000. So, again, there's a commitment to form the department. We don't have the funding yet. However, we have kept the process moving forward, namely clearing dead trees from our public right-of-way.
Good.
Well, just look at Eversource being a good neighbor.
Yeah, well,
I've said it from day one.
different divisions, I'm going to say.
He's a good neighbor.
I'm just saying, we should, note the buzz.
Yes, definitely, absolutely. I mean, and they undertook a lot of work for us, and it's been a concern of the boards for a while that there's all these dead trees, and, you know, we saw after the last storm how many trees came down, so.
Yeah.
I do note that they did just add 6 new double poles going down Cedar Street.
Yeah,
Here's the reality check.
Yeah. In fact, in my last meeting with Eversource local government representative, we rekindled those regular meetings that will allow the town to discuss double poles on a regular basis with Eversource.
They're awesome.
Okay, and then finally, Chapter 61A, Notice of Intent for the Conversion of Use at 0 and 5 Mechanic Street and 0 Wood Street. This is the final step on the part of the board. We are asking that the board sign the letter that will indicate that the town has elected not to exercise its right of first refusal.
Mr. Kamalo, since I had recused myself from all of this, you still need me to sign this? Okay, that's fine.
No, you won't.
Recuse.
Recuse, okay.
And then...
So we're done talking about that, are we?
yeah.
Okay. So I guess at this point, I would entertain a motion, so Mr. Nasrallah has recused himself?
Yes, I've
Okay,
recused
so I
myself.
would entertain a motion to sign the notice of non-exercise of the town's right of first refusal pursuant to Mass General Law 61A, Section 14, to John and Pamela Larder relative to property at 0 and 5 Mechanic Street and 0 Wood Street.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we don't need to do a roll call, right? Just all in favor? Okay.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Any opposed?
And
Any
one
abstentions?
abstention.
Yeah, one abstention.
Well, I'm recused, so I can't even abstain.
Yeah, but I think that's how it's recorded.
Yeah.
Or no.
And then just one last note, for the board's information, mark your calendars, the all-hands meeting, December 13th.
Oh,
1
great.
Oh, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
December
Another
13th.
meeting.
December memorable meetings.
Yes.
What time?
6.
Is it a,
More to come on that.
Okay.
All right. Liaison reports, anyone have anything to report?
I do have one.
Yeah.
So I attended the MAPC fall meeting this morning. It was actually a redo. They did it on the day we had the power outages after the bad storm, and they didn't have a quorum, but we had a quorum today. And we voted to approve the Metro Common 2050 Boston Area Metropolitan Area Planning Council's kind of master plan goals and ideas for the next 30 years. Anyway, and so all the documents are on the MAPC website for anyone to read, and also they are willing to do regional forums if we wanted to go in with another group of towns and have a MAPC representative come and do a presentation for us and answer questions. I don't know if we would be interested in that, but we could think about that.
I mean, if it's going to affect us for the next 30 years, I think that'd be something we'd want to know
It's an
about.
aspirational document. We're not required to follow it, but it's just, yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yes. First of all, I'm on the Budget Advisory Committee, and I shamefully missed the last one. I was playing Junior Monopoly with my 5-year-old grandson and lost track of time. When is the next one? Because I would think that this Thursday would be the cadence, but it's Veterans Day.
1 second.
It was, yeah. So I assume it'll be rescheduled, or
I think we'll simply continue the 2 week.
2 weeks out,
2
which
weeks
is
out.
Thanksgiving, I think, right? I hate to be I hate to be that guy, but
No,
But it is.
Thank you for pointing that out. We will schedule a meeting between this week and Thanksgiving.
okay, all right, and I apologize that I missed it. I had it on my calendar and I totally forgot. I also went to the Marathon Fund Committee meeting last night. Appreciated the support of town staff too to help that committee understand the finances. It was a really successful year. So the Marathon Fund Committee provides some scholarship monies to students, which is super terrific. And they also sometimes have additional funds left over from the gift after the town's expenses have been covered. So it's worth saying that they have a little bit more than they expected, and there might be some departments or clubs or groups that could take advantage of that. They have a process whereby it needs to be a concrete expenditure for something or some program, and they also request 3 estimates, so some due diligence on cost and so forth. But I think that some neat things have happened. Team jackets, I don't exactly know, but some things perhaps for the band or some things for the senior center or things like that. So put that out there for people to consider. And then the only other thing I wanted to say is I was privileged to represent the town at one of the Diwali celebrations that happened in Ashland. It was last Saturday, and I will confess to you, I had spent 8 hours straight working on a Saturday and had that kind of headspace frame. I got ready to go. I was delighted to be able to go, but I was tired and I was frustrated with work. And I walked in and I was so pleasantly greeted, and there was just so much joy and fun and family fabulously going on that I was really, really privileged to be part of it. I was privileged to learn about a little bit more about Diwali, and I was certainly privileged to see the singing and the dancing and some of the snacking, and it was just wonderful. And I appreciate the invite, and also just share in the season and happy Diwali to people who celebrate. And frankly, even if you don't, you should, because it's a happy little holiday.
Awesome. Well, Brendan, any updates?
I just did the Marathon Committee.
Okay.
I have one. I attended the Chamber of Commerce tailgate at Startline on Sunday. That was a great event. Chamber has a lot of good ideas, and it was a well organized event. Kudos to Startline for for putting on such a wonderful spread.
That's
And,
awesome.
It really was a great time.
Would you believe I got my negative PCR results like 2 hours after they finished?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, we didn't have to speak.
I was
so
wanting to, really wanted to go, but
It was good.
huddled in a room by myself.
I had an extra bowl of chili thinking of you, so.
Excellent. I like chili, we're good. Okay, then, I guess I'll entertain my favorite motion of the evening.
Board.
Future board agenda.
I got none.
Anybody have agenda items?
I was just going to note for the public, we've had 3 vacancies now on elected boards. We have the town moderator's resignation we just received, Board of Library Trustees resignation, and then previously Claire Wright had sent a resignation for Cemetery Commission. So I just wondered, for the public's knowledge, what is the process? And if, I believe we can appoint someone for the interim, and if not, they would be elected at the next town election. So I guess that's just for.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as
I would
well.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like how
members
we
of the
go
public
about
may
it?
wish to apply. if-
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
You look confused. I think she's just asking like how we're going to fill the vacancies.
That's on the future board.
As an agenda
Oh,
item.
future, that's why I was wondering if you wanted us to respond now or to...
Well, if it's a quick answer, and so I guess, I think, if I understand the process correctly, the other commission, Cemetery Commission or Board of Library Trustees would tell us if they wish to fill the vacancy now or wait till the election. Is that right?
They notify the town clerk and the select board of the vacancy.
Okay, and they would like to fill it, or, because we can leave it vacant too, right? Or you can tell us next time.
Exactly.
That's why it's an agenda item.
And also, the town moderator, which is an interesting gap, but I just also wanted to say, all 3 people who resigned on those boards are longtime residents and longtime public contributors. Claire Wright, Stanley Polnick, and Tom Garabedian are names that probably almost everybody knows and recognizes from their long-term service. So I know that I speak safely for the board that we really appreciate their years of dedicated service, and we will miss them.
100%. Okay. Is that it for agenda items? Okay, now I will entertain that motion.
Their favorite
I
motion.
move to adjourn the meeting.
Yes. Second. All right, we have a motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstained? All right, thank you.
Good. Were you even?